Hey friend, welcome to the Get Rooted in Health podcast. I'm Gabby Flater, a faith-led wife, mom of 3, certified nutrition consultant, personal trainer, and passionate about changing lives. I know how frustrating it can be to navigate the health and wellness world. You want to be motivated to prioritize your well-being and wish you were more educated when it comes to cultivating a healthy home. Maybe you're a mom who's completely burnt out and needs a fresh perspective on life, or you're searching for a place to feel seen, heard, and encouraged in a godly manner. No matter if you're doing the dishes, getting your sweat on, or drinking reheated coffee while watching the kids play, there is always an opportunity for growth. If you are ready to finally take action about these desires and are ready to learn, grow, and transform your mind, then you are in the right place. It's time to establish deeper roots so you can enjoy a more fruitful and fulfilling harvest. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the Get Rooted in Health podcast. This is episode number 19, creeping up on 20 here, which is super exciting and crazy how time flies. So thanks for sticking around this long. And if you are new to the show, I encourage you to go back and find some that resonate with you, some of the titles that you think you would benefit from. So I got lots of topics that range from all sorts of things, including health, mindset, fitness, motherhood, gardening, all the things. So we're it's a pretty diverse yet still focused on just overall living a whole, nourished, well life, and living it, just whole and as healthy as we can. Because let's just be honest, when we're healthy, we're happier. We are spending more time doing the things that we want and the things that we enjoy rather than not. So that's my 2 cents there. But I want to, first of all, start off with a review of this show. I read every single one, you guys. I appreciate every single review and rating. So I thank you so much for everyone that has done that. It is such a great free way to support the show, and it means so much. So this one is from Apple Podcast user KD Wietenheimer. Hopefully I said that correctly. I know I'm going to get a lot of names that I don't even know how to pronounce, so I apologize in advance. But this person says, great new podcast, and they left a 5-star review and said, I felt like Gabby was speaking directly to me from the very first episode I listened to. Love having a new health BFF to give me easy and doable strategies to get and stay healthier. I highly recommend subscribing to this show. Well, thank you. I am honored to be your newest health BFF. That is so awesome to hear. Thank you so much for that review. So let's get into today's episode. This one is going to be a little bit more on a mindset. I'd like to alternate weeks, if you kind of haven't noticed, between something that is educational, surrounding whether that's like a fitness thing or a fitness or nutrition myth to bust, or some tips, or just diving deep onto one specific topic like we did with inflammation. And last week was, I believe, on feeding our children and healthy snacks and how to shop for that and all of those things. So if you have not had a chance to go listen to those, I would encourage you to go check those out when you have some time and you do it a few extra chores or out and about or out on a walk. Always good to fill your brain with good things. And when you're moving your body and filling your brain, it's just you're doing great things for both your physical and your mental well-being. So I'm a big walker and podcaster as long as my kiddos allow me to listen. But that was more when they were little, and now they require a little bit more of my attention, which is totally fine. Just a different season. So today I wanted to chat about change and all of the ways that it has changed me, if I just want to say it that way, using the same word, and how it's grown me and how I view it, and how I hope that you find this episode encouraging, because we're all going to go through changes, challenges, climbing that uphill for a while. and it can be hard. I know that. So I'm not telling you to poo-poo it and to just, deal with it and suck it up, because they're real, they're big. But I hope that this episode and some of my personal life experiences that I'll share can encourage you in some way to rise above it and push through it and, welcome the feelings, but learn how to grow from that. So I'm just going to grab a quick sip of water here, and we're going to get right into it. So one of my favorite things to focus on, it's actually a quote. I don't even know. I could look it up. I don't really know who came up with it, but it says this: if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I say that a lot of times in like my fitness classes, and just as a reminder to myself that I'm not going to change unless something actually forces me to, or challenges me, or poses some resistance in my life. Yes. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, it's uncomfortable. And that's okay. Getting out of our comfort zone is important. And some people don't like to. They don't like to ruffle their feathers. I have people that are like, I'm just super set in my ways. And while I'm all for that, sometimes life's just going to nip you in the butt. And if you have not allowed yourself to learn how to get uncomfortable a little bit, those life curveballs, those opportunities that maybe you're not open-minded to are not, they're either not going to ever present themselves, and you're going to feel stuck. Maybe you're wondering why you don't have the relationships that you want, or the job that you want, or the results of anything. Like, you have to allow yourself to welcome some of those things in your life that might be a little iffy. Do we always want it? No. Do I always want it? No. But if I can say this about my life, the one thing, and I don't know why, I think God is just like, I'm going to give it all to you, Gabby. It's been change. That's been the theme. Change, challenge, getting uncomfortable. There's been a lot in my life that has not been steady, and I kind of have learned to roll with the punches. Have I always handled every situation well? No. I've went through it since I was, we'll just say 8 years old when my dad passed away. I'm sure there were maybe minor things before that, but that was the marking in my life of when I feel like my world was changed, was flipped upside down. So if we don't want to grow, or if we want to grow, then we must face resistance. It's like a required ingredient in the recipe of life. And yeah, life requires that resistance so that we can grow. I'm all about analogies. So, thinking about gardening, those little seedlings have to face resistance to get stronger. They have to push their way through that soil. They have to battle the winds. We got a crazy storm one night, and a bunch of my pea plants had kind of fallen forward off of the trellis, so I kind of had to help guide them back on there. But man, I am always so impressed after a storm how resilient a lot of that garden is, most of that garden. It is quite incredible. So just the winds, the rains, the sun, the heat, some of the cooler temps, bugs, just all the things that it has to face in order to grow stronger. It has to go through that, because if you do any indoor seedlings, they recommend that you have a fan blowing on them at some point, so that they start to get used to that wave of the wind, and that the stems and the plants, they can learn to withstand that and become stronger. Then you start to get them used to the outside. So you put them out there for maybe an hour, and then you get them out there for 2 hours, and then you get them introduced to some sunlight while they're out there. And, it's just a gradual thing in order to get stronger. So, just thinking of all the different things in life that have gotten you to where you are, you would know that for yourself. So I encourage you to assess that and maybe journal it out. And actually really look at it and be like, wow, because sometimes we don't think that we've experienced that much or gone through that much. And honestly, I think we all have to some extent. And we just aren't giving ourselves enough credit to see where we were and how far we've come. So yeah, I will share a little bit of my personal ups and downs. And like I said, my life is basically just all made up of change. That is like the theme, the ongoing theme. And I've learned to embrace that, and I've learned to begin to accept some of that. And I don't think that it's like some curse. Like, no, I don't believe in that. But I know that God has been using everything for a purpose. And sometimes you don't see it. Usually you don't see it. I'll just say that right away. You might not see the harvest or the benefit or the purpose behind that pain or that growing point for years. And that kind of sucks. It does. But it's there. And if you are willing to look for it. So as I've gone through many things, I'm always looking for the ways of allowing God to use it for good. And I found a couple verses that I wanted to share with you. And it says in Ecclesiastes 3:1, it says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." And then in 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18, it says, "Therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. I like this part, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." And I just think that's such a great reminder for those of us who have hope in Jesus of, the things that are unseen is eternal life and life off of this crazy earth filled with craziness and heartache and so much joy and happiness and great things, but also a lot of sadness and pain. And just knowing that there are different seasons of life and there is a time for everything. So I hope that those verses encouraged you. So like I said, for me, I really bring my full story to start back when I was 8 years old. My dad had passed away. I don't remember a lot of my childhood after that. And honestly, prior to that, I was just a kid. So I just remember all the fun things I would do and visiting my grandma and grandpa and my dad always being silly and all those little kid things. But, I don't remember things in too big of detail, especially when it comes to my dad. And then life just felt kind of blurry since his passing. Grief as an 8-year-old versus grief when I lost my best friend 2 years ago. As an adult, they're like night and day difference. I experiencing grief in a whole different way, a whole different level. But yeah, my dad had hemophilia like our son, Titus. It's a genetic thing. And that played a huge role. We'll just say that There were some things back then that they tried to treat men who had hemophilia with in ways that were not sterile and healthy. And so a lot of men, my dad's age, like a whole era, basically had gotten wiped out. So I'm sure you could go kind of Google some of that info if you wanted to know more. And I'm sure there'll be another podcast on hemophilia to raise awareness to that, because I believe it's important. And it's a personal life experience that, I would love to share. So he had complications from his bleeding disorder, and we're just super grateful, side note, that Titus can live such a normal life compared to even just 20 years ago. And I don't have to worry about the things that my dad had to go through. And even my grandparents, I wish I actually could have a conversation with them, and I can't. My grandma's not around, and my grandpa isn't really there mentally. So it's unfortunate. I wish I could just sit at a table and ask them what life was like. And now I know why my grandma was such a worrywart. So, so aside from that, a couple other complications from his bleeding disorder had aided in his passing. And so from that left me with me, my mom, my baby sister. I believe she was about 1 when he passed. And yeah, that was my whole world was upside down. And I watched my mom grieve. And so after that, about 4 years later, my mom did remarry, and she found someone who loved us, me and my sister, as his own. And she was just so grateful for that. And as we were too. But as you know, just blended families, it's not always easy. It's not always rainbows and unicorns, So there were just a lot of things, and extra siblings came along the way, and I wasn't, dumb. I knew how babies were made, so it was just a real hard thing to face. But of course, now looking back, I would have never wanted my mom to live alone. And for us to have a father figure, for every home to have a father figure is huge. So just lots of ups and downs with that. After losing my dad, then my mom getting remarried when I was 12, adding siblings along the way, and I had changed schools. My school I went to a private school, had shut down, and that was up to 6th grade, so I had to find a place for 7th and 8th grade. So I went to a new Lutheran private school for 7th and 8th grade. We also switched churches. We also moved, not out of the same city, but we lived in the same city, but we literally moved maybe 2 miles down the road with a lot that was like a farmhouse, a lot more land. It was just a whole new life compared to the home that I was in prior to that. So remarried, new siblings, new home, new church, new school, which means new friends. So think of me at 12 and 13. Those are crucial years for a teenage girl who has a new dad, who's trying to be her dad, and all the things. I dealt with a lot of what's the word? I was very self-conscious. I was not a very confident person. I wasn't confident. We'll just leave it at that. I was very self-conscious about my body and about me. And yeah, I just felt like I didn't always fit in, or I tried too hard to fit in. I don't know. And who knows, maybe old friends of mine are listening to this. I have no idea. But, I just laugh because I feel like, wow, who is that girl? That is definitely not who I am today. Okay, let's see. We moved to that home. So I added on a stepbrother, and then I had 3 half siblings all in there. So I'm the oldest of 6. I went from being me and my sister, who's 7 years younger than me, to then all of a sudden having 4 more siblings in there, and I'm the oldest of all of them. So, and it's great. Love them all. They're all my brothers and sisters. That's just what it is. We've been a whole blended family for, let's see, since I was 12, so 17 years this year, which is just insane. But it definitely didn't come easy, and there were many hurdles over the years, and but God was using it. He was refining me and my family, and just I can see all the ways that He was moving and active in my life. And we did, I ended up, so then after 7th and 8th grade private school, I was launched right into public high school. Never was in the public school world. So that was, and in a big school. Okay. So that was huge for me, but I found my people. With high school, you just kind of cling to who you are most like you find your group, your clique, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I was kind of diverse. So I had, a diverse amount of friends and different passions and interests and stuff. But, I was into sports, so I had a lot of sports friends and things like that. And so, with high school, just a lot of changes in and out of all of that, and still molding into that whole family. I would say just ages 13 to 18 were just, some big years. They're defining as a teenager, and as you're trying to figure out what your future might hold, and then just, figuring out the ins and outs of family life and all the dynamics and the responsibilities. I had lots of responsibilities. I feel that I had to grow up a lot faster than most children, most kids, most friends my age. And that's okay. I don't mind that. I'm not mad about that. I just had experienced a lot of life things early on, and took on a lot of responsibilities, and that's just how we function as a home, and that's fine. Helping care for kids and watching the kids, and learning how to make meals and all the things. And so now my family actually does homeschooling. And so it's like a completely different life. So my youngest sibling, I'm 29, my youngest sibling is 10. There's 19-year difference. So there's still a lot of, schooling going on there, and they are homeschooled, and that is what they morphed into. And I think that is super awesome. And I don't know what that's like. My husband had that his whole life. And it's just not something I was ever raised in, but that's what we plan to be doing for our children. And it's just so crazy how drastically different, like, my views have changed and how I see things so differently, yet I was raised so different. But it was what was known then. It was what was, my mom could do. And this is life, and it's so different for us all. And it's just such a cool testimony, just to see the way God has moved in people's lives despite our past, right? Like, super cool. So out of high school, I actually got married at 19, and best decision I ever made. No matter how many people thought I was crazy or trying to run away from home and just latch onto the first guy, like, that was not the thing. That was not it. And here I am, almost married 10 years later, and we have 3 beautiful children, and we are happy, and just super grateful for all of it. And I wouldn't say that, we've had a fairly, I don't want to say easy, but it's not been that hard until, I would say, the last 3, maybe 4 years. I'd have to really think on timeline here, but we grew together as adults, and, we were still pretty young. And I look at, like, other 19-year-olds, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who thought who thought it was a good idea to let me get married at 19? Because I'm like, I would never say yes. Like, I just feel like, wow, how crazy. But it's just how I feel God lined it up. And it was just how it meant to be. Alex knew what he wanted. And yeah, I just didn't feel that there was something else quite there for me in life. I didn't get the green light to go pursue any sort of college degree. I wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't there. And I felt like you're supposed to go work, you're supposed to go save money, and you're going to get married. And so that's just kind of what I did. And here we are. And not a lot of change after that, not a ton other than just like a job and living, marriage change. You got to learn to live together, all of those things. So that wasn't like an awful change. It was just a new and exciting and, different kind of change in life. And like I said, I think within the last 3 to 4 years, our marriage has taken a lot of weight. We had a few family situations arise that were huge. It called us to a lot of prayer, a lot of seeking wisdom and humbling ourselves, working together, being really real with our emotions together, like a lot of conversations with each other and with other people that we trusted and confided in. We helped family members through some trials in big ways that we had to sacrifice our own life, like living in some areas to help. And so we did that all while having little children. I was pregnant with my second, due soon with that one at some point during one of the biggest trials of my life. And God saw us through it. I wasn't sure how. And there's no point in details because it's not important that way for everyone. But just sharing, because it was the most difficult thing at that point in our marriage. And it wasn't anything to do with our marriage, but it was both of us together that had to get through it, and we saw how it affected each other. Then after our second child was born, we faced resistance and change with a diagnosis that threw us for a curveball that we did not know was a genetic thing. So I touched on it. It was hemophilia, what my dad had. We had a lot of traumatic bleeding episodes post-birth with our son. And it took a little while for it to be diagnosed, but he was diagnosed at about 8 weeks. And they diagnosed him before any blood work came back, but I didn't want to believe it until I saw the numbers and I saw the proof. And that led us into a whole life of, it's a lot. It was a lot. So that was a big change in our life to have to shift, like learning all these things and having to embrace it and figure out how we were going to raise this son with this. And then when do we start his treatments, and when do we know the right time for that, and is it going to work, and how is he going to respond? I don't like doctors, so how is this going to work well with my personality? All the things. But it's been actually smooth sailing ever since we decided to have a port placed in his chest back in 2019. And God was really looking over us because that happened just as the whole COVID thing started to creep up on TV. So I was able to have people come. I was at the hospital for maybe 4 days. I had so much support. Alex could be there with me. I could be there with my son. We didn't have to wear masks. There was nothing. And it literally happened 2 weeks prior to the world shutting down. As well as the beginning of, so just before my son had that port placed, the beginning of that year, 2020, my best friend was diagnosed with stage 4 aggressive pancreatic cancer. And my husband's boss also was diagnosed with cancer, and we lost both of them. I lost my best friend to, Friday, March 13th, and the world went to hell, basically, on Monday, the 16th, or whatever day that was. Yeah, the world shut down, and we were all able to be there with her. So right now, I'm starting to see some of the things through the grieving process that we've gone through. Those were the trenches. Those were so hard, with my husband and I both grieving losses of personal, but then together seeing each other hurting, because we both knew those other people well, and it forced us to grow. It forced us to be vulnerable with each other and talk and cry and have more grace with each other. And man, it's hard to parent when you're in those stages, but talk about a lot of change. And I am in some of that harvesting of the relationship I had with my friend who passed. Now, you'd think, best friend, you've known her for 20 years. No, I actually only knew her for about 4.5 years. But the day we met, I'm pretty sure we never stopped talking since then. And we talked every day, multiple times a day. So that in itself, it sped up the whole friendship process to make it feel like we were friends forever. So with that, just thinking where I am now, how that friendship has changed me, and how where my husband was changed him, and how we're both in 100% different places now in life. And me doing this podcast is a part of that change in my life. It's part of facing that resistance. I faced it. I knew I wanted to do this back when my friend was alive. I wanted to do a podcast and I just didn't. And here I am. I faced some of the change and the hardship and the resistance, and I was gonna do something good, and I was gonna do something purposeful. After I allowed myself the time to grieve. And it doesn't look a certain way. There's no set time. I can't tell you that in 2 years you're going to be ready to push forward. It's really different for everybody. And not that I've moved on. I've learned to start putting some of my purpose, because I know that's what she would want and what we would be doing together right now. So that is, hopefully I didn't miss anything, but you kind of got a glimpse of a lot of my childhood to teenage years with some big life changes. And then you match that right after that with getting married, which is a huge life change. We've added kids along the way. We moved to a home in 2015. So, those are all good things, but life is full of changes. And so I don't want to keep you much longer, but just thinking about the trials in your life. Think of life without your trials. Do you think that you would be the same person today? And for me personally, that's a hard no. I wouldn't be the same person. Like I said, I don't even recognize the girl from the past, but that's okay. And, losing my friend 2 years ago has brought me through a lot. I had to work through a lot of emotions and process a lot of things, and I've also been able to recognize a lot of ways that she impacted my life for good, and that I can pay it forward. And I'm able to see that now when I wasn't in the first months of all of that pain and that sadness and the change, when all of that came to a sudden stop in my life. But one big part is when we have our hope in God, it makes going through life changes feel more hopeful. So when we feel hopeless, we can feel more hopeful because of the hope we can have in God. And whether or not you believe in Him, on here, I've made it clear that this is something that is, a part of me and how I process life and how I was raised and how I, walk through this life, and God is definitely a part of it. you feel like the burden is lighter. You feel more confident. You know that having faith in God, you can know that when having faith in a God who has always remained loyal, remained truthful and steady, helps us to have faith in the unknowns of our circumstance. And we know that faith without works is dead. So you have to put your faith to the test, or else it's just a word filled with emptiness. Like, what is faith without the works? Like, you actually have to put it to the test. And it's just empty and no proof to back it up. So you just have to, get back up, power through. God's got you even when we fall. Let these challenges grow you. Pop through that soil. Become that strong, sturdy plant of whatever choice you want to be. Be that beautiful sunflower that has to weather the storms and just grow beautifully. And I hope that this encourages you. I know it got a little sappy towards the end, but I appreciate you hanging on. And if this at all resonated with you, if it touched you, if it encouraged you, I would love to hear your comments in the Facebook group, Get Rooted in Health Community. Over on Facebook, you can find the link in the show notes there. You can send me a direct message, screenshot and share this message on your social media, or just send it directly to a friend that you feel needs to hear this. Anything that you can do to keep this show going around the world would mean so much to me, as always. And I thank you for your time. And I pray that this blesses you, and just know that God is not done with you. And wherever you are at in life, whatever season, just remember the verse that I shared earlier, Ecclesiastes 3:1. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. So with that, be well, my friends. Be blessed by this. Have an awesome week, and we will chat soon.